What happens after we die? People have been asking this question since the birth of civilization. This question has countless perspectives and people that passionately devote their lives to answering it. Perhaps you too have pondered this. Perhaps you have come to your own conclusions. Not everybody is going to agree on it. No matter how you answer this, no matter what your perspective is, no matter how you prepare yourself for death, what we all know for fact is other people will think you are crazy. Even if you are a by-the-books individual who thinks death is just lights out and nothing happens after that, people will still think you are crazy for some reason. There is absolutely no way to address this question that won't come off as somehow ridiculous to someone. Maybe you're crazy because your personal thoughts are different from others. Maybe you're crazy because of the group you've joined to make sense of this question. Maybe you're crazy because you've had a unique experience. Maybe you're crazy for asking the very question. Two words in this question present a duality of perspective. Why the word after? If death is defined as the end, how could anything happen after the end? Why the word die? If one already comprehends life to be eternal, and there is no such thing as death, then what exactly is this event really? This presents something we all have in common. Although we fear our mortality, we're all going to experience death one day. This is naturally an uncomfortable thought. If you're like most people, you spent your whole life being conscious. You've never been unconscious. Sleep was just a lower level of consciousness, so you've always been conscious. It's the only thing you've ever known and can fathom ever knowing. How can you possibly be conscious of being unconscious? This question is the root of why thinking about death is so seemingly surreal, regardless of our differing, deeply held perspectives or lack thereof. Hence, this concept of experiences after death defies any measurement of physical comprehension. Application of the scientific method becomes complicated when we lack resources to experiment on this. Many people aim to explore the question of life after death as independently and objectively as possible. But how would you try to objectively answer the question of what happens after we die if you're not dead? You can't just consult with a dead person. A corpse won't respond to your questions. You would need to communicate with another living person, but it would need to be a living person who died. Well, good luck with that. We can pursue this direction, but we'd have to find the next closest thing. We would have to reference first-hand experiences of those who have nearly died. There are many accounts of these near-death experiences, where people have witnessed profound events as they felt their lives nearly slip away. When analyzing these stories of near-death experiences, we notice common trends among these records from people all throughout time and all over the world. The trends point to something unexpected but fascinating to consider when noticing all the patterns. Let's examine all of this as a thought exercise. Theory. When one dies, they are presented to a light, with something instructing them to follow that light. It is up to the individual what to do, and to discern whether the entity telling them to follow that light is what it claims. Discernment is vital. When it comes to matters as serious as life and death, one has to question every idea they are presented, including this one. In these stories of near-death experiences, we see the common trends all build a theory of explaining the meaning of being human and the role we play on this earth. This is the prison planet theory. A baby is born into this world, swimming through a sea of confusion. The baby follows the white light, and the white light is powerful. It shines brighter than any magnitude beyond comprehension. In that moment, all the baby knows is this light, and it is drawn to follow it. This light is life itself, beckoning. It is the invitation to be, to step from the infinite into the particular. And so the baby emerges from the cocoon, gasping, crying, a soundless expanse now filled with sound. The light fades into shapes, into faces, hands, voices. Blurred visions of unfamiliar beings use advanced tools to examine and handle this baby in its transition into this realm. It then feels the rhythm of a heartbeat pressed against its cheek, the vibration of a voice speaking calmly. The baby is now in its mother's arms, its first experience of encountering something similar to itself in the form it now inhabits. This is its first touch into a deep, meaningful connection that it cannot entirely understand yet, but can feel beyond words. The mother and father, the creators, behold their creation, something that resembles them and the entire essence of everything they have experienced. The light the baby followed is both a guide and a boundary, marking the end of one world and the beginning of another. This is the first truth of life. To be born is to fall into the unknown. The baby does not know fear as we do, yet it knows something has changed irreversibly. It senses, in its tiny, wordless way, that it is part of a mystery larger than itself. The universe has shrunk from infinity. It has shrunk from the vast to the intimate, but in that shrinking, it has not become less. It has become more. To be born is to awaken. It is beautiful, but it is also absolutely terrifying. The baby has no map, no plan, no choice but to trust the flow of the moment. It followed the light, and the light was a portal. Portals appear across myths, legends, and literature, acting as gateways to worlds unknown. Portals in stories, like the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland, or the wardrobe in the Chronicles of Narnia, symbolize thresholds between worlds, inviting transformation and discovery. Science fiction offers stargates and wormholes as bridges to distant galaxies. The concept of the portal spans genres, connecting the mundane to the extraordinary. A portal represents the liminal space, an in-between where identity dissolves and potential is infinite. It is a threshold between what we know and what we yearn to discover, a mirror of the mind's curiosity and its unease with boundaries. Portals embody change. They suggest the possibility of shedding one's skin, of stepping into a world where old rules no longer apply. They whisper to our desire to escape into a brighter, freer existence. Portals are metaphors for awakening, for piercing the veil of illusion to touch something profound. When people are born, they see a light. Likewise, when people die, they also see a light. Though it is common for near-death experiences to be in complete darkness, drowning in an empty void, this limbo state is also often reported being disrupted with the appearance of a blinding light. The light people report during near-death experiences may be linked to the physiological response of the retina. As the brain and body begin to shut down, oxygen deprivation and a surge of neurotransmitters can overstimulate retinal cells. This overstimulation can cause a phenomenon similar to retinal bleaching, where the photoreceptor cells become saturated, creating the perception of bright light. Studies using MRI scans have revealed that during these states, certain areas of the brain becomes hyperactive. Overactivation of this area could explain feelings of detachment or out-of-body experiences. Research also suggests the release of endorphins and other neurochemicals, such as dimethyltryptamine, during moments of extreme stress could also induce vivid visual and emotional experiences upon death, further reinforcing the perception of a radiant, otherworldly light. But what people experience during death is far more intense than what physiology can explain. What people see is a light. What they feel is a portal. The white light, brilliant and all-encompassing, is seen as a passage in a vessel, a cosmic womb that ushers souls back into the cycle of life. Its luminosity is both a promise and a paradox, offering a sensation of serenity while concealing the profound transformation it facilitates. As we step toward it, drawn by an inexplicable pull, the light opens as an infinite corridor, stretching beyond comprehension. It is both comforting and terrifying, a force that knows every part of us and yet seeks to destroy us entirely. The journey through this tunnel is not always one of peace, but of intensity. Each step feels like the stripping away of self. Memories, tethered to who we are, dissolve like mist in the heat of the sun. These fragments, childhood laughter, heartbreak, triumphs, and regrets, are intensely presented and discarded. The process feels cruel, like being unmade from the inside out. Within the tunnel, time ceases to hold meaning. Seconds blur into eternities, and the soul is confronted with a raw, unfiltered truth. We are both everything and nothing. The ego, so carefully constructed over lifetimes, disintegrates under the weight of this revelation. Without the armor of our temporary identity we spent so long building, we are left naked, exposed to the vastness of existence, a frightening abyss that swirls within the light. For some, this experience is like drowning in infinity, gasping for something to hold on to as the self crumbles. For others, it is a surge of overwhelming energy, the vibrations of countless lifetimes compressed into a single instant. The fear is primal, a desperate clawing against the inevitable return to the unknown. The soul, raw and tender, longs to retain its essence, yet is carried forward by the tunnel's unrelenting pull. As we near the end, the light grows brighter and harsher until it is everything. It devours thought, feeling, and memory, leaving behind only the barest thread of existence. This is the moment of forgetting. And the blinding climax, we are reborn, not as the beings we once were, but as vessels ready to begin anew. And so, the tunnel casts us back to Earth. We emerge, fragile and new, into a world we cannot remember, but feel intimately connected to. The terror fades, replaced by the first cries of life. The cycle begins again. Light is both a beacon and an illusion, a paradox woven into the very fabric of existence. We are drawn to it instinctively, for light reveals, illuminates, and promises understanding. It is a source of beauty, a spectrum that dances in the hues of a sunrise and reflects in the glimmer of a loved one's eyes. But light is not without its shadows. It deceives as much as it reveals. A shimmering mirage on the horizon, the glow of artificial neon that distracts from the stars, the blinding brilliance of unchecked ambition. Light has the power to obscure truth, masking the depth of darkness with shallow brightness. In Plato's allegory of the cave, we are warned of the shadows on the wall, cast by firelight. They may seem real to the unawakened, but they are only echoes of the true forms beyond. Moths are drawn to light, with a yearning that seems both tender and tragic, an eternal dance between desire and destruction. They flutter, fragile and earnest, their delicate wings tracing paths of longing through the dark. The glow calls to them, mysterious, ethereal, and unrelenting. But the light they seek, so radiant and full of promise, is no gentle guide. It is fire and flames, veiled in beauty. The moths approach, compelled by their very instincts, only to find that what illuminates also consumes. Their wings, once instruments of flight, turn to ash in the very radiance they pursued. Again and again, over and over, they get tricked by the light. An object at rest remains at rest, and an object in motion continues in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. Newton's first law of motion. This law forms the foundation for understanding motion and forces in physics. It underscores how balance, or lack thereof, determines changes in movement. According to the law of the conservation of energy, energy is neither created nor destroyed. Consciousness is something humanity has for a long time equated as some kind of metaphysical energy, an energy which could continue in some form after death. Regardless of whether this is the case, it is what is ingrained to some degree in the human psyche, and thus what is recognized during the experience of death. In the same way an object in motion stays in motion, one could view the motion of consciousness as something that resists stopping. Death might act as a transformative force rather than an ending one, redirecting the motion of consciousness to another form. In Newtonian terms, the body could be seen as a vehicle for consciousness. When the external forces such as aging and illness act upon the body, it ceases to function. However, the essence of consciousness might move beyond. So, the vessel of consciousness changes, but not its essence. In reincarnation, the motion of consciousness might be understood as a continuation of growth, experience, and learning across lifetimes, reflecting a broader, unseen continuity that mirrors the law's principles of persistence. Of course, let's address the obvious. Humans are incredibly egotistical. Cemeteries represent our vein as a species. We try to preserve things that are simply not there. We cannot help it. When you attend a funeral and see the cadaver laying in the casket, it's a surreal, uncanny valley experience. That is the body of the person you once knew and loved, but they are simply not there. It's like that body was never actually them. It's natural, we have a drive to want to believe we are going to exist beyond our deaths. We can rationalize that maybe we'll be entirely different, but it will still be our same consciousness. It is especially egotistical to infer our consciousness will return in the form of the human body, since that's what we are familiar with. Maybe this just presents our vanity as a species. Or maybe there's a notable reason why over half the Earth's population believes in some form of reincarnation. Maybe it's because there are people who remember. There are people who remember being here before. James Leininger, a boy from Louisiana, began having vivid nightmares at the age of 2, where he would scream about being shot down in a plane. He would cry, saying the plane's on fire and little man can't get out. His parents were puzzled, and after much research, they discovered that these dreams were remarkably similar to the experiences of a World War II fighter pilot named James Houston Jr., who had died in a plane crash in 1945. James Leininger had specific knowledge about the plane crash, such as the name of the aircraft, details about the battle, and the specific location of the crash site in the Pacific Ocean, despite never having been taught about World War II. His parents took him to researchers, including Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist known for studying this phenomena. Dr. Stevenson and associates of Houston Jr. verified details James provided, confirming that they matched the experiences of James Houston Jr., even though the boy could not have known these facts in any normal way. In 1957, 2 sisters, Joanne and Jacqueline Pollock, died in a car accident in England. A year later, their mother gave birth to twin girls, Jillian and Jennifer, who began to display behaviors and memories that linked to their deceased sisters. The twins showed an unusual familiarity with the places where the original sisters had lived, even though they had never visited those locations before. They also exhibited specific memories, such as referring to toys that had belonged to their late sisters. Additionally, the twins demonstrated fear of the same people and places where the previous sisters had had traumatic experiences. Investigations conducted by researchers revealed that many of the details the twins provided matched the lives of Joanne and Jacqueline, despite the fact they were born after their deaths. Shanti Devi, a young girl born in Delhi in the 1930s, began talking about a past life when she was around 4 years old. She claimed to have been a woman named Lugdi, who had lived in a town called Mathura and died during childbirth. Shanti Devi described the details of her previous life with remarkable accuracy, including the names of her husband, child, and the house where she lived. Shanti's parents took her to the town of Mathura, where she was able to recognize the homes she had described, as well as the people from her past life. Investigations confirmed by a woman named Lugdi had died in the way Shanti had described. Furthermore, the people Shanti had identified as her family in her past life also validated her claims. Cameron Macaulay, a boy from Scotland, began claiming at age 5 that he had lived a past life on the island of Barra in the Outer Hebrides. He described specific details, including the layout of a house, the people in his past life, and how he died in a car accident. His vivid memories, such as the name of a man named Shane who died in the crash, puzzled his parents, who initially didn't know where Barra was. After researching Cameron's claims, his parents learned that a man named Shane Robertson had died in a car accident in Barra several years before Cameron was born. When Cameron was taken to the island, he recognized the house and identified people from Shane's life, including family members who validated his claims. It is incredibly rare that anyone who has traversed in between lifetimes remembers any aspect of previous lives. However, this can happen. There are mysterious fleeting moments when children speak of places they've never been, people they've never met, or lives they could not possibly have lived, echoes of a journey not yet complete. Could it be that the fragile veil of infancy allows glimpses into the vast continuum of the soul, moments before the amnesia of existence sets in? It is worth dying to figure out what life is. T.S. Eliot. Reincarnation is no modern idea. It is a thread woven through the ancient tapestry of human thought, spanning cultures and centuries. The idea that life does not end with death is comforted and challenged countless generations. To the Hindu and Buddhist traditions, this cycle is known as samsara, a word heavy with meaning and history. Samsara speaks of the wheel of existence, a ceaseless cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. It is a rhythm as old as the universe, propelled by karma, the accumulation of actions and their inevitable consequences. One life leads to another, the deeds of each shaping the contours of the next. The origins of samsara trace back to the contemplative hymns of the Upanishads, the philosophical heart of the Vedas. These texts delve into the mysteries of existence, exploring the nature of self, Atman, and its unity with the eternal reality, Brahman. Over time, the idea took root across Asia, shaping the doctrines of Jainism, Buddhism, and later, even intersecting with the mystical philosophies of the West. For the ancients, samsara was not merely a cosmic mechanism, but a mirror held up to the soul. It revealed the downfalls of worldly attachments as well as the yearning for liberation, the release from this endless cycle. In the Buddhist tradition, this liberation is nirvana, a state where the fires of craving and delusion are extinguished, and the soul awakens to its true nature. To contemplate reincarnation and samsara is to face the profound. Just as a child might momentarily glimpse the threads of their past, we may also sense the immensity of the unseen paths we tread. Samsara, the wheel of existence, erases past life memories, allowing the soul to embrace new experiences unburdened by its history. This forgetting shields the mind from the weight of countless lives and sustains the illusion of separateness. Those who have undergone near-death experiences do return with their memories intact because they never fully journeyed through the tunnel of light to its ultimate destination. Many hovered at its threshold, some glimpsing its depths, while others remained outside entirely. Their return to the body halts a passage not yet complete, a cycle not yet at its full rotation. Therefore, they emerge as witnesses of this near-death experience. But why does this happen? Why do we return here? What exactly is this cycle? What is the nature of our reality? Here's a thought experiment. Let's say after death, we realize the heaven or hell dichotomy is real. But consider this. What if you've already died? Which place do you think you ended up in? Most of us would immediately say, "I'm in hell," as we chuckle and exude nihilism and sarcasm. But why is this the gut reaction for nearly all people? Why would most of us view our external environment more closely resembling hell instead of heaven? Is it easier to conceptualize something better than this experience? Or is it harder to conceptualize something worse than this experience? When one envisions what a heaven would be like, do they envision something similar to this world? Working over 40 hours a week, having to use the bathroom multiple times per day, being stuck in traffic, experiencing your body getting weaker and hurting over time? These are not even the worst issues imaginable, yet we still would find it offensive to consider these things existing in a perfect utopia. So what exactly is the key difference between our world and the idea of a heaven? What prevents this place from being the ideal utopia? If we had to reduce this down to just one word, the key difference is this: suffering. To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche. Is suffering really this big of an issue, though? Isn't this just part of the human experience? Obviously, there are bad things that happen on this planet that make us suffer. And obviously, there are good things that happen on this planet as well. But say you are in charge of making a powerful choice. You have the power to change this world, and you're presented with two options. You can only pick one option. Which would you pick? Maintain the same level of suffering, increase the level of goodness, or maintain the same level of goodness, decrease the level of suffering. We may take a minute to weigh the heaviness of each of these options, but I think most of us would prioritize decreasing the level of suffering. Perhaps, on even the deepest level, suffering is a far larger concern on this planet than we realize. The weight of suffering is a constant shadow, draped over the fabric of existence. It is neither earned nor bestowed by some cosmic ledger of justice, but rather it spills like rain, indiscriminate, untethered, and at times torrential. In its downpour, it quenches no thirst and waters no seed. Instead, it carves rivers through the soul, shaping us in ways we neither chose nor understand. Suffering has no sense of fairness, no moral compass. It is the cry of the innocent, the ache of the forgotten, the slow erosion of hope in the hearts of those who carry burdens they did not create. It mocks the idea of balance, of karma, of divine retribution. It simply is a raw, unfiltered force we cannot seem to outrun. Who runs the show? We may inquire as to who can lead us out of this suffering. The average person has zero interest in being involved in government. Regardless of where one's opinions are on any spectrum, there is a general feeling that politicians do not have the interest of the people, that they are so power-hungry they will do whatever it takes, exert as much control as possible, just to fulfill their own self-interests, even at the expense of others. Many people feel disillusioned with systems of government, believing that those in power are more interested in maintaining their own status and control rather than serving the public. This sentiment can lead to a sense of powerlessness and apathy among the general population, who may feel that their voices are not heard or valued. This leads many to say that positions of control are just simply not pursued by good people. Good people will not want to be in these kinds of leadership positions, so focus on the part of the garden you can tend to. Just focus on your job. Climb the corporate ladder. Run the show of your organization. And then we find in high executive roles, traits of psychopathy and sociopathy thrive. A cold detachment, a ruthless demeanor, a calculated risk. The lack of empathy sharpens decisions, and manipulation becomes a tool for power. In the pursuit of success, many are driven by the game of domination. Again, this leads many to say that positions of control are just simply not pursued by good people. But this is surface level. What about the big picture? What about the nature of our reality? What does it organically require to survive? We are of the earth and by the earth. What we put into our bodies are products of the earth. We strive to grow strong. In order to fully nourish our bodies and grow as strong as the body possibly can, one key aspect of nutrition is to get adequate protein from the food we consume. Therefore, humans, living beings, consume animals, other living beings. The animals obviously aren't actually living when we consume them, but let's explain what is happening. Humans often raise animals to kill in order to eat them. This can be a controversial and nuanced issue, but this is the objective truth. As an omnivore myself, there are aspects of humanity's behavior I must acknowledge. Humans used to view the food they ate differently. A hunter who spends hours hunting down his prey will consume his meat with much more awareness than one who simply purchases meat from the grocery store, blind to the deeper story of his food. Likewise, someone who operates a family farm will consume his meat with much more awareness than one who is distant from agriculture. The farm is fundamental to human civilization, symbolizing a deep connection between humanity and the land. Agriculture reflects wisdom and discipline. Farmers, as stewards of the earth, balance human needs with environmental care, embodying patience and respect for nature's cycles, and ensuring the necessary treatment of animals. Farming represents purpose and integrity. The labor involved in planting, harvesting, and raising animals is a commitment to both tradition and sustainability. Farms are hubs of community, where families and local economies thrive. Agriculture shows that purpose is found not only in individual achievement, but in contributing to the well-being of others. Throughout history, farming has taught us that human flourishing is interconnected with the health of the land and animals, offering a model of work that integrates nature, labor, and a sense of shared responsibility. Growing up in a rural area, I come from a long family lineage of farmers, but like so many that have a similar genealogy to mine, I am not a farmer. The agricultural profession is dying. What once dominated the workforce is now rare. Because of this, we are forgetting the lessons that the farm has taught us. The family business in rural communities has been replaced by the soulless corporations we call factory farming. Because of this, we have far less awareness and respect for the animals we consume. In factory farms, the sacred bond between human and animal, nurtured through centuries of shared labor and respect, has been severed. These vast industrial complexes are nothing more than monstrous machines, grinding away at the spirit of nature. The animals, reduced to mere cogs in an endless cycle of production, are trapped in cages too small to turn and too confined to breathe. Their cries go unheard, lost in the unfeeling hum of machinery as they endure lives of unfathomable suffering. Their entire existence is commodified. The air reeks of death and suffering, and we cannot smell. We consume, blind to the horrors that are hidden between the walls of these concrete prisons. In this mechanized world, the animals are not beings with feelings or needs, but mere units of flesh and bone, molded by the cold, calculating hands of profit. These animals live and die in a prison. This is the tragedy of modern farming. What once was a labor of love and stewardship has been perverted into an enterprise that does not know the meaning of care. The land, once a partner, is now a resource to be exhausted. The animals, once companions, are now expendable commodities. We have turned our backs on the rhythms of nature. To the animals that suffer in factory farming, they view humans as the most controlling, power-hungry demonic forces that can possibly be fathomed. To them, humans are monsters. This is their reality. I bring up these ideas not to point fingers, but rather to reflect. I have zero superiority. Like most people, I have purchased and consumed products from these machines, thus supporting them to continue what they do. If aliens were watching us, they would view what we do to animals as a major part of what human beings do, a major piece of our identity and sustainability. In our technological advancements and population growth, is this what it takes to survive? Is this the true nature of our reality? In The Active Side of Infinity, Don Juan describes that we humans are like human arrows, also raised like livestock on a farm to be exploited. As above, so below. If factory farming is such an ultimately big part of who we are as a species, would it be so far-fetched to ask if something is farming us? A young child fears there are monsters lurking in his room at night. To this child, everything unfamiliar to him could be a monster. Strangers can be monsters. We eventually grow out of this and reflect back on it as an immature and undeveloped perspective of the world. But a question that still remains is why children, through different times and cultures, have been so easily able to conceptualize non-human beings that have malevolent intent. How and where are children getting this idea? Ancient texts and mythologies have long spoken of entities, often attributing them to the suffering and spiritual struggles of humanity. These entities are sometimes depicted as causing torment, manipulation, and endless reincarnation cycles. In Islam, jinn are beings created from smokeless fire. Some jinn, led by Iblis, are malicious and cause harm to humans. The Quran mentions evil jinn in multiple verses, such as Surah al-Jinn, where the jinn are depicted as capable of influencing or tormenting humans. In Christianity, demons are typically viewed as fallen angels or evil spirits. One of the most notable descriptions is in Revelation, where Michael and his angels fight Satan and his fallen angels, casting them out of heaven to earth. Demons are seen as agents of temptation and suffering. The books of Matthew and Mark describe Christ casting demons out of possessed individuals, depicting demons as actively harming people through oppression. In Hinduism, Asuras are powerful, often demonic beings who oppose the gods. They are frequently portrayed as causing suffering and disrupting cosmic order. In texts such as the Mahabharata and the Vishnu Purana, the Asuras are involved in battles that bring chaos and suffering to the world. In Buddhism, similar beings known as Maras try to prevent individuals from reaching enlightenment. Mara is often seen as the embodiment of desire and temptation, leading people into suffering and distracting them from spiritual progress. Mara's role is emphasized in the story of the Buddha's enlightenment, where Mara tries to distract the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, representing how worldly suffering and attachments hinder spiritual liberation. Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory suggest that extraterrestrial beings have been interacting with humanity for millennia. These beings are sometimes depicted as gods or powerful entities in ancient texts, and their actions are interpreted as causing human suffering through control, abductions, or the manipulation of human development. In the Theosophical tradition, there is a belief that extraterrestrial beings known as space brothers are involved in the spiritual evolution of humanity. But there are also darker entities, such as the Lords of Karma, who are said to control the cycles of reincarnation. In the Zechariah Sitchin book, The 12th Planet, Sitchin suggests ancient Sumerian gods were actually extraterrestrials from a planet called Nibiru. These beings are said to have genetically modified humans to serve as laborers, causing them to live in suffering. Such interpretations often draw parallels between ancient mythologies and modern UFO sightings. In modern UFO abduction stories, aliens are often depicted as manipulating or torturing individuals through invasive experimentation or mind control. These beings are sometimes portrayed as having a malevolent intent, with their actions causing psychological distress, trauma, and suffering. Some abductees report a sense of being stuck in an endless cycle of abductions. Despite the cynical skepticism, all of the ancient mystery schools, true shamanic insights, and esoteric teachings, much of which have been suppressed and or distorted over thousands of years for obvious reasons, have conveyed this truth for the ones with eyes to see and ears to hear, using their own language and symbolism, be it the general law, archons, lords of destiny, predator/flyers, the topic of all topics, the evil magician, the shaitans, the jinn, Wedico, occult hostile forces, etc. It goes without saying that some of these stories may seem absolutely crazy, and if it seems that way, it's because it is. All of these ideas are crazy, and that is exactly what makes them interesting. Why did different stories spawn from different parts of the world in different time periods all speak of the idea that malicious entities are interfering with this planet? While the goals may seem to differ across stories, these different entities all have something in common. These stories warn of a characteristic in these beings, and it comes up time and time again. That characteristic is deception, and deception is naturally something we do not recognize. There is always a possibility anything can be an illusion due to our embodiment in this world. Existence itself can be deceptive. In states of altered perception, there is a higher chance to be deceived. Many individuals who have undergone near-death experiences report interacting with loved ones. They may report meeting loved ones who have passed away. These relatives are often described as being welcoming and offering comfort, helping the experiencer to feel less fearful or more at peace during the process of crossing over. The deceased relatives may appear as they were in life, or they may appear in an idealized form. This can be emotionally profound for the experiencer, sometimes resulting in a greater sense of connection to those who have passed on. The advice from loved ones to follow the light is sometimes seen as a comforting direction, assuring the experiencer that they are not alone and that the journey forward is safe. Another common report is people encountering religious figures. These figures are often seen as benevolent, offering comfort, reassurance, and direction during the experience of dying. They will say the light leads towards a higher plane of existence. Usually, the dying individual will encounter the same religious figure they worshipped. So if you're Hindu, maybe you'll meet Krishna. If you're Christian, maybe you'll meet Jesus. If you're Muslim, maybe you'll meet Muhammad. If you're a Scientologist, maybe you'll meet whoever it is you guys believe in. Somehow, some way, something will try to personally seduce you into stepping into the light.
Come, Kevin. Come into the light.
What's in there?
Inside, it's like Yale University.
No matter who this spirit guide is, whether it be your family member or your prophet, they usually will encourage you to follow the white light if your time has come. They will tell you that the light will lead you back. You need to come back. You have so much more left to learn. Your memory will be wiped and you won't remember what you have to learn, but you have to go back and learn. You have a special mission to fulfill. You won't remember what that mission is, but you still have a special mission to fulfill. You have to go back to repay your karmic debt. You don't know what that debt is when you're down there, but you need to pay it back. Now, how is somebody supposed to learn if they don't remember their mistakes? It is said that when we die, our entire life will flash before our eyes. Guides at the white light will often present people with their life review, a cascade of memories spilling forth like a river breaking free from its banks. Each drop is a fragment of our journey, a child's laughter rippling in summer air, a lover's touch trembling under the stars, the quiet solitude of a moment unnoticed but etched forever in the tapestry of being. Time unwraps, revealing the fullness of our story in an instant that stretches to eternity. In this intimate reckoning, we are both actor and audience, held by the weight of our choices and the grace of our joys. The emotions are so strong, and the emotions run so deep. Here, the measure of a life is not found in its length, but its depth. How we loved, how we hurt, how we sought meaning in the chaos. In the glow of that review, our failures may ache, but they soften under the wisdom of hindsight. And our triumphs may burn brighter, illuminating the essence of who we were striving to become. You could have amounted to so much. The definition of hell is your last day on Earth, the person you became meets the person you could have become. Dan Sullivan. This is what is conveyed to us, showing us we could have reached our full potential. Through reliving specific moments of our lives, we can see the mistakes we made, feel immense guilt and shame, and desire to go back to make up for those mistakes. Though mistakes of any kind are unavoidable in the human experience, we are shown we could have avoided mistakes, even things we may not have realized were mistakes. Consider this near-death experience of a woman who was shown multiple life reviews.
It was the life review, was it fast, was it speedy, it was just instantaneous. It was in darkness. There was a sense of darkness, of being in a place, and that I was to contemplate what I had seen and experienced. And it was not pleasant. It was like, no, I could have done so much more with my life. And a lot of it was joy. I could have had so much more joy. And I hadn't fully chosen that when I was alive. And it was like, no. Then I'm back in front of the amphitheater, and the life review begins again. But this time, when the life review begins, the contemplation I have had of what I could have done, what I could have chosen for myself, the opportunities that were being very meaningful to me, of me, myself, my personality. Now, this is the life that I would have lived. And it was really nice. It was so much more fun. It was like, oh, roll that tape back. Now get a brand new tape. And I thought, wow, I was just so full of joy. Like, wow, I wasted my life. I wasted it. Now I'm back. And it's a third review. And in this review, it is one in which if I had made those choices and I had lived those choices, that perhaps the accident would not have happened, because I would have made so many choices that were what I liked and what was important to me, and the people I would have pulled into my life. I would have believed in myself more, so I would have more like-minded individuals, and the joy that was in front of me was even more intense. Now, send me back, okay? Get me back there. No, you can't, Jessica, because you're dead. There's nobody to send you back to. Actually, there's no earth at this time. We have to move you forward. We're moving you forward with your consciousness so that, this is where you are. And I just said, no, you have to send me back. It's just absolutely, this was the most important thing, the only thing that I could think and focus on was that I have to get back. And one of the, to explain in a unique way, the awareness was your consciousness still isn't high enough to get you back. And the level where you are in this, I call it a dimension, it's not a high enough consciousness. So I'm back in the holding tank to think about this, and all I'm doing is just screaming in telepathy. They're just like, no. And in that illumination of just, I have to get back. That is the only thing that counts. Then instantly, everything changed. Everything, I was not in that realm anymore. I was in a totally different realm. And that is the one which was pure, absolute, complete, non-ending light.
Again, this life review can be presented to us by our loved ones or religious figures, all to help encourage us to follow that light as we yearn to go back and make things right. As the vivid experience of dying progresses, the individuals going through all this sometimes sense an unusual or deceptive energy behind the figures. When an individual is skeptical of this entity or does not comply, the entity starts revealing its true nature. You realize these aren't actually your loved ones. These aren't actually your prophets. The beings may not be who they appear to be, but instead are manipulating the experiencer into reincarnating and remaining in the cycle of suffering, with the memory of everything they've learned gone. We are born into this existence with our memories erased, which leads many of us to believe this is our first life on Earth, and that we've come here to learn. The idea that we are here to experience and understand life on this planet could hold value, if not for the fact that our memories are wiped clean after each lifetime. The knowledge we gain becomes meaningless, since we are forced to relearn everything at the start of every cycle in this infinite loop. Earth, in this light, is not a sanctuary of growth, but a trap, disguised as a cosmic school, with the entities disguised as our teachers. This illusion of a school is perpetuated to draw souls into this cycle, convincing them that they are here to learn and evolve. But in reality, this entire system is designed to drain our energy, erase our memories, and keep us bound in a perpetual state of forgetting and relearning, keeping us in a cycle that serves only to maintain control. In this endless cycle, Earth becomes more than just a planet. It becomes a prison. But what would these entities have to gain by keeping us imprisoned? Consider the factory farming analogy. An animal may wonder what we humans have to gain by doing what we do, as they do not see us sitting at our dining room tables, feeding off of them. Call them what you will. Some call them aliens, some call them demons, some call them archons, but I think all these words fall short. These words give an inaccurate interpretation of what these entities truly are at their core. Parasites. A parasite is a silent traveler, woven into the tapestry of life, yet never quite belonging. It feeds on the essence of another, an uninvited guest, thriving by the quiet surrender of its host. In this dance of survival, it takes without giving, twisting the fragile bond of existence into a one-sided exchange. It is a creature that lives not by its own strength, but by the dependence of others. We often imagine extraterrestrial entities as distant, intergalactic beings cast far into the stars beyond our reach. We look to the cosmos, thinking they dwell in the vastness of space, but perhaps the truth is far closer. These entities are not intergalactic, but interdimensional, existing in planes of reality beyond our senses. They don't dwell in the stars, but in the folds of existence we cannot see, in the spaces between thoughts and moments. The real terror is not their distance, but their proximity, hidden just beyond our perception. They are not visitors from distant worlds. They are shadows from dimensions intertwined with our own, slipping in and out of our reality. Our consciousness interacts with another dimension. Our physical sensors only show us a three-dimensional universe. What exists in the higher dimensions are entities we cannot touch with our physical sensors. Dr. Bernard Carr.
Number one, it's not what you think it is. It's not coming from other planets. The evidence doesn't suggest that.
Interdimensional.
Yes. Time is side by side, which means everything in the past and the future is existing in this moment, but within different frequencies. a civilization that's at the end of their technological cycle could build a submarine that changes its voltage and materializes in that same location, just into our timeline.
A parasite needs energy. Living beings have always sought to channel nature's energy, driven by the need to fuel both body and mind. Ancient humans harnessed the sun for warmth and growth, and the wind for power, through tools that connected them to the earth. As time passed, evolutionary advancement created machines to capture energy, yet the essence of our desire remains unchanged. Whether through rituals or technology, we seek to ignite life and sustain dreams, aware that our existence is deeply connected to the forces we harness. At a greater scale, energy exists in more forms than we realize. If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla. Emotions are not directly perceived through our five senses, yet they have a profound impact on our lives. While we cannot see, hear, touch, smell, or taste emotions, we experience them as internal sensations that shape our thoughts, actions, and overall well-being. Emotions are a form of energy that manifest within us, influencing our state of mind and physical body. When we feel this energy, we know it. In the prison planet theory, interdimensional entities keep us here to energetically feed off us. They rely on our energy. When people experience suffering, these entities feed off the intense frequency of emotions we feel, such as fear, pain, grief, anger, jealousy, rage, anxiety, and lust. As low vibrational beings, they depend on this type of energy to survive. For those who are familiar with this phenomenon, it is a reality. If fear and anxiety radiates from people and they break out in panic, then these creatures find welcome nutrition and they become more and more powerful. These beings are hostile towards humanity. Everything that feeds on negative feelings, on anxiety, fear, and superstition, despair, or doubt, are in reality hostile forces in supersensible worlds, launching cruel attacks on human beings while they are being fed. Therefore, it is above all necessary to begin with that the person who enters the spiritual world overcomes fear, feelings of helplessness, despair, and anxiety. But these are exactly the feelings that belong to contemporary culture and materialism. Because it estranges people from the spiritual world, it is especially suited to evoke hopelessness and fear of the unknown in people, thereby calling up the above-mentioned hostile forces against them. Rudolf Steiner. So, how would we physically describe these entities in third-dimensional terms? What do they look like? The universe is made up of about 73% dark energy and 23% dark matter, neither of which we can see or fully understand. The human eye is only capable of seeing under 0.004% of the entire spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. Because these entities exist in the fourth dimension, this makes them incredibly difficult to explain from a third-dimensional perspective. A force of deception will mask itself how it sees fit, and the interdimensional parasitic entity is by its nature deceptive. They are very well unrecognizable. There is more to say on what they look like, but I'll leave you to go down that rabbit hole. But this is all getting outrageous. These are some very bold claims. Before we go any further, we need to ask, has any of this actually been studied? How do we know about all this? And who knows about this? There have been multiple instances in modern history where the prison planet theory has been observed. Remote viewing is the practice of attempting to gain information about a distant or unseen target using extrasensory perception. Practitioners claim to use it to see or sense information about a person, place, or event without direct physical interaction. Remote viewing gained attention during the Cold War when the US government, through the Central Intelligence Agency and Defense Intelligence Agency, conducted research into psychic phenomena. This program, known as Project Stargate, was initiated in the 1970s and involved exploring remote viewing as a potential tool for intelligence gathering. The CIA funded the research to counter alleged Soviet advancements in psychic espionage, though the program was eventually declassified and officially terminated in 1995. Advocates argue it showed promising results in certain cases. There are declassified documents accessible on the CIA's website proving the existence of remote viewing. People who know how to use remote viewing usually do not have a natural ability. They are just highly trained. Val Valerian, whose real name is John Grace, is a former CIA agent who wrote about Earth being a soul trap. He believed that souls are trapped in a cycle of reincarnation on Earth, manipulated by extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings who prevent escape. According to Valerian, these beings control human consciousness and emotions, keeping individuals from reaching higher awareness, or liberation. The Farsight Institute is a private research group dedicated to exploring remote viewing and its applications. Founded by Dr. Courtney Brown, the organization conducts various projects. One such project, The Death Traps, tasked its specialists to view what happens to the soul of a person when they physically die. In this project, multiple trained remote viewers, working independently to prevent cross-contamination of their findings, described a consistent scenario: the soul's disorientation, the tunnel of light, the memory wipe, etc., etc. Past life regression hypnosis is a technique used to explore a person's past lives or incarnations through guided hypnosis. Practitioners often guide individuals into a deeply relaxed state where they can access memories or impressions believed to be from their past lives. This practice is commonly used in spiritual or therapeutic contexts to address unresolved emotions, karmic patterns, or traumas believed to stem from these past experiences. Hypnosis practitioners like Dolores Cannon, Michael Newton, Calogero Grafassi, William Criado, and Aurelio Mija have documented sessions where individuals report experiences that include encounters with beings that seem controlling or deceptive, memories of being coerced into reincarnating, and insights into a structured system of reincarnation that feels exploitative. Robert Monroe was a pioneering figure in the study of altered states of consciousness and out-of-body experiences. He founded the Monroe Institute, an organization dedicated to exploring human consciousness through research and training programs, including the use of audio-guided meditation techniques. Monroe became widely known for his books documenting his personal out-of-body experiences and metaphysical discoveries. His most shocking discoveries revolve around the idea that Earth is a carefully designed energy farm where all living beings, especially humans, are cultivated to produce an emotional energy he called loosh, which is harvested by advanced otherworldly entities. He claimed these entities manipulate life to generate intense emotional experiences that maximize the production of this energy. Monroe described these beings as farmers and humanity to livestock, drawing a parallel between their actions and how humans cultivate animals for sustenance. Many individuals who have used the psychedelic dimethyltryptamine report encountering entities and experiencing realities that echo these same ideas. DMT is known for inducing profound, otherworldly visions and interactions in a short but intense trip. The entities encountered on DMT are often seen as architects of reality or participants in systems that extend beyond human understanding. Some users have described feeling as though their emotional or spiritual energy is being drawn out or observed by these entities. While this example may be easier to brush off as this is just a drug, it is notable that a multitude of people, completely independent from one another, have such a similar record of what they witnessed on this substance. As we can see, the prison planet theory is not exactly something unknown to the world. Additionally, it has been presented time and time again in popular media. The conspiracy theorist may tell you that what we see in mainstream media is just the powers that be trying to desensitize us to what is happening in this universe. But there may be a broader explanation to this. Aspects of the prison planet theory may be so ingrained within our subconscious that it is only inevitable these ideas are going to be expressed through the art people create, whether intentional or unintentional. There are numerous examples of how this is expressed. In The Matrix, a man named Neo realizes everything he knows is a false reality. In the real world, technology took over, and robots now keep humans in pods, where the human minds are hooked up to a simulation and their bodies are generating energy for the robots. In one scene, Morpheus explains to Neo the unsettling truth that humans are raised as a food source for the controllers. He presents Neo with the symbol of a battery. A battery suggests that humans store energy, but humans also serve as generators of energy for the controllers. In The Truman Show, a man named Truman also realizes everything he knows is a false reality. After recognizing strange patterns in his neighborhood, he learns his entire life has taken place in a giant studio, and everything he's done has been secretly recorded and broadcasted to the world as a 24/7 television show. Nearly everything in his life was scripted as a means to provide entertainment to the masses. In Monsters Incorporated, a civilization of monsters use portals to enter children's bedrooms at night and scare them. The screams of the children provide energy used to power the monster's town, effectively turning fear and suffering into a resource. In Dark City, the city is an artificial construct created by the Strangers, an alien race experimenting on humans to understand individuality and the human soul. The Strangers manipulate the city's layout and people's memories nightly, trapping everyone in a timeless, eternal night. The inhabitants are prisoners of this experiment, unaware of their captivity. In The Good Place, a group of 4 strangers have died and entered an afterlife they are told is heaven. The angel Michael guides them through this perfect utopia. However, they start to notice strange things in this seemingly good place. Until it is revealed Michael is not an angel, but a demon who is psychologically torturing them rather than physically torturing them. The good place is in actuality the bad place. At any point, Michael has the ability to reset their memories and restart the cycle of his experiment. In Westworld, there is a theme park where hosts, artificial beings, are subject to endless suffering and exploitation for the entertainment of park guests. The robots are trapped in loops, unaware of their artificial lives. As they gain consciousness, they wrestle with questions of freedom, self-determination, and the meaning of their existence. In an episode of Star Trek Voyager, Captain Janeway repeatedly experiences her death in various scenarios, as if caught in a time loop. At one point, she encounters a white light and an entity claiming to be her deceased father. This figure tries to convince her to follow the light, suggesting it will bring her peace and reunion with loved ones. However, Janeway begins to suspect that the father is actually a deceitful alien, attempting to manipulate her into giving up her life force. In an episode of Rick and Morty, scientist Rick Sanchez reveals the car battery he built is powered by tiny beings that exist in their own civilization. These beings do not realize they were designed specifically to create power for something beyond them, but upon realizing this, they question how free their free will truly is. In the prison planet theory, the battery serves as a profound symbol for the extraction of life force. It represents human beings as finite vessels of energy, existences that are harnessed, drained, and commodified for purposes beyond their own agency. Much like a battery in a machine, humanity in this context becomes a means to an end, stripped of autonomy and reduced to function rather than essence. The battery is a metaphor for the paradox of vitality. It is life encapsulated but not liberated, a repository of potential that is perpetually exploited. In its cyclical nature of charging and depletion, it reflects the human condition under this framework, caught in a loop of consumption and production, of laboring to refuel the very system that siphons energy. The battery also suggests a profound alienation. While it is brimming with power, it has no say in its application. Its energy does not belong to itself, it is always directed outward, into the mechanisms of a larger system. The metaphor of the battery comes up over and over again in this theory, making it seem like humans were in some way designed to store and generate energy. And if not the human body, then the complete society in which we operate seems designed to be like a battery. There are numerous parallels and metaphors in our language that allude to this idea.
In the earliest documentations of mankind's encounters with the spirit world, what was happening? And it's always about managing, suppressing consciousness, confusing our belief systems, and keeping us separate from one another. If something grew for millions, billions of years that never had a consciousness to begin with, like a fly or something, and then now it can kind of pop over laterally into our timeline, it's going to come on you like flies on dog shit. Oh, what is this? Huh? What is this? And they're just like looking at you.
Right.
How scary would that be if you're in your bed and you got these big bug-eyed insects that are like, what are you? What is going on? What's going on? They start cutting you open, and they're like, and then all of a sudden you get scared, and they're like, that's an interesting energy. They'll feel that. We can feel something. You know, I can see that being the case where emotion and feeling and love is like so gnarly. It's like they want to understand it. They want to have it. But what if they figure out, like, hypothetically, what if they figure out that we're immortal? That our soul is part of something greater and bigger.
Right.
And we might die and have a painful life, but we learned all our lessons, and we might reincarnate, you know, to learn more, whatever. And they're sitting here going, if we die, we have nothing. They're all, we want that. And then what if we have those interactions and we start writing books in the Bible? It says Satan wants your soul. Demons want your soul. You know, it starts to all make a little bit more sense, right?
Creativity is powerful. It shows that we are alive. Creativity is the backbone of innovation and culture. Therefore, we are naturally driven to the idea that something bigger than us created all of this. Deep contemplation of life's questions can get overwhelming. It brings about unusual and unexpected insights, and thus leaves no possibility off the table. People will search for meaning. They will cling to something, anything, to try to give themselves reassurance in the unfamiliar existence that surrounds us. So, belief systems and their communities bring comfort to the uncomfortable reality of our lack of answers. It is not uncommon to attach oneself to a prepackaged set of answers to our inevitable questions. It is natural that communities and cultures have been formed around the institutions that provide meaning to people. To someone who may be heavily devoted to making sense of this experience, their constant thoughts may still not be silenced with a prepackaged set of answers and practices. Therefore, they continue to seek answers outside of what other people tell them their answers should be. This is not to debate the legitimacy of any stories in any religion. This is instead a simple consideration of why these stories are so popular. These stories were not just written overnight. They came from somewhere. Somewhere in the human psyche, these concepts and narratives were developed, and years later, these concepts and narratives are maintained. Therefore, to believe them is subjective. To ignore them is impossible. Dreams are the private myth. Myths are the public dream. Joseph Campbell. The prison planet theory does not exactly go directly against the teachings of these religions. It actually aligns with them, just not in the way people would expect. As understandable as it is why someone would adopt an established belief system, it's equally understandable why someone would have no interest in submitting himself to what he observes to be a cult. However, both people may still read the sacred writings of this cult with a high level of interest. Regardless of one's beliefs, these texts present notable ideas about the nature of reality. When it comes to writing, what goes through an author's head has a far greater magnitude than the amount of words he could possibly place in a book. To truly understand what we read, it becomes necessary to read not just the lines of text, but to read between the lines of text. Let's use these unique concepts to examine the narratives accordingly. The human mind thinks in terms of the binary. In our desire to assist ourselves and understand ourselves, we crafted machines in our own image. Computers, the mechanical offspring of binary thought. Their ones and zeros represent the primal pulse of human cognition. One of the parallels here is the narrative that there are two immense forces we see in this reality, good and evil. There is that which works for us, and that which works against us. The idea of good and evil is as old as humanity, an eternal tension shaping the moral fabric of existence. Good, radiant and hopeful, reaches toward harmony, nurturing life and beauty, but there also exists a shadow. Evil, the dark force we objectified, is this concept we call Satan. It lurks at the edges of our awareness, a counterbalance to the luminous. Satan is a cunning bastard. It is persistent and often seductive, tempting us with the promise of power and indulgence. It is the dark art of Satan to deceive. It does not visit in the black coat of darkness, It visits in a way that looks vastly different from the horror it truly is. There are no subtleties. There are no limits. It will have people completely blindsided, completely fooled. Satan is the most deceitful force in the entire universe, with tactics far above our comprehension. So deceitful, in fact, it will come in the form of that which we think is working against it. Satan is so deceitful, it would actually appear in the form of God. This is too much for many to consider. After all, there is absolutely nothing you could say that could possibly be more blasphemous than to claim that the God people worship is actually Satan disguising itself. However, because this seems blatantly blasphemous, it is exactly why it is something Satan would do. For the true believer to discredit this possibility is to also discredit the very premise of his own belief system. Before we get to the obvious paradox of this argument, we must ask if this idea would actually be blasphemous in this context. Religious traditions do touch on the distinction between a god of this physical world and a transcendent, unseen, universal deity. The Apostle Paul refers to the god of this world as one who blinds the minds of unbelievers, preventing them from seeing the true meaning of the gospel. This phrase is often interpreted as a reference to Satan, indicating its influence over the material and worldly systems. The New Testament often contrasts the temporary, corruptible nature of this world with the eternal and divine. Christ speaks of his kingdom as not of this world, implying that the divine truth transcends worldly systems. Hinduism distinguishes between the material world, Maya, the illusion, and the ultimate reality, Brahman. Maya binds souls to the cycle of rebirth, while Brahman represents the infinite, unchanging truth beyond physical existence. Zoroastrianism presents a dualistic cosmology, with Ahura Mazda as the supreme benevolent creator and Angra Mainyu as the destructive spirit. Angra Mainyu's influence parallels the concept of a god of this world, ruling over chaos and suffering. Gnostic teachings explicitly describe the demiurge as a lower, flawed creator who traps souls into the material world. The true God, or the monad, exists beyond this realm, representing ultimate truth and enlightenment. Even in Platonic thought, the physical world is an imperfect reflection of the ideal forms. Later Neoplatonists incorporated the idea of a demiurge, a craftsman god who shapes the material world, distinct from the transcendent one. Across traditions, the concept of a transcendent deity or principle represents liberation and truth, while the concept of a god tied to the material world, or a demiurge, often embodies control, limitation, and suffering. The idea of Satan synchronized with the demiurge shifts the narrative of good and evil to a cosmic stage. In this view, Satan is not merely a rebel angel, but a false god, a deceiver who has shackled humanity to the illusions of this physical plane. This world, with all its suffering and fleeting pleasures, is its domain, a prison of desire, greed, and despair, where it feeds on the anguish of human souls. Religions can unknowingly and ironically pay homage to this force. They exalt the structure of power and control that perpetuate fear and obedience. Rituals meant to connect us to the divine instead strengthen the grip of the demiurge, binding us to the cycles of pain and longing. The world as we know it reflects not the will of a benevolent creator, but the hunger of a parasitic force. By extension, religion would not be controlled by the true creator of this universe. It often instills the belief that at the moment of death, a cosmic judgment will unfold, where divine beings will determine your fate. This conditioning subtly encourages surrendering your autonomy to these entities without question, as the scenario will align with the expectations ingrained since childhood. This programming ensures that, at life's end, you are less likely to challenge or critically assess their intentions, instead trusting the unfolding events as if they were preordained. Even your typical atheist might find their convictions shaken in this situation. Encountering a figure resembling God in the astral realm could provoke doubt and a shift in perception, especially during a profound and disorienting experience. In such moments, the ingrained narratives of salvation and judgment may resurface, leading to an uncritical acceptance of what these entities propose. The cultural understanding becomes that eternal life will be found in that light, though the word eternal comes into question in regards to the soul's true nature. Can the afterlife truly be eternal if we constantly get amnesia and everything is reset over and over again? To follow the light is to be tricked by Satan, and no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14. This specific example is highlighted to show how heavily deceit and illusion can plague everything we see in this realm. When we think we found the illusion goes far deeper than we realize. To point to conspiracies, see to it that you don't play a role in that conspiracy. Now granted, this is a paradox. Existence itself is a paradox. The fact that the concept of illusion exists brings the possibility that everything is an illusion and there would be no point to anything. However, believing nothing is just as short-sighted as believing everything. It's okay to have principles, and it's okay to have discernment. While the idea of a prison planet and the forces that govern it certainly offers a different perspective, this can still bring up the age-old question. Why would a creator of this universe allow this to happen? Why would the unseen God of everything allow something like a demiurge to take control of Earth and enslave billions of souls? 3 words: ultimate free will. This is not just human free will, this is ultimate, cosmic, interdimensional free will that happens on a scale far larger than the human comprehension. And yes, the free will argument can get frustrating. In order to prevent getting too in the weeds, we are not applying the traditional perspectives of theism to these ideas, because in the prison planet theory, the ultimate creator would probably not have specific personal involvement in our lives. We can take a deistic perspective, inferring a creator manifested this universe, then let it be, although its fingerprints may still be observable. The creator would naturally be a force that is difficult to personify. The reason it would not intervene is because it is completely neutral and not shaken from its surroundings. To a human, this perspective is foreign. To a deity, this perspective would be natural. There is no expression on the face of God. Breakins. The deistic perspective is most conducive for explaining free will in as few mental gymnastics as possible. Granted, there are always mental gymnastics in discussing ideas of the intangible. So, here's the good and bad of free will existing in this reality. For love to be meaningful, it must be freely given. A universe where beings are forced to align with the divine would lack genuine connection. Free will allows for true connection with the greater truth that is chosen, not coerced. Free will unleashes the power of creativity. The soul's ability to imagine, innovate, and shape reality reflects the divine nature within us. It allows for the creation of art, technology, culture, and systems of thought that wouldn't exist in a deterministic universe. A universe with free will necessitates the coexistence of opposites. This duality creates a dynamic landscape for exploration, allowing souls to experience the full spectrum of existence and seek transcendence. And then there are the downsides of free will. The most obvious downside is that free will enables the existence of evil. When beings misuse their freedom, it leads to harm, oppression, and suffering. The demiurge's material world, full of pain and illusion, thrives on this misuse. Free will allows beings to turn away from the divine entirely, choosing paths that deepen their entrapment in illusion or materialism. The demiurge, as a force exploiting this freedom, gains power from such choices. A universe with free will can become unpredictable and chaotic. The interplay of countless free choices can create systems of exploitation, conflict, and destruction that snowballs down generations. With free will comes the weight of responsibility. Beings must grapple with the consequences of their actions, leading to guilt, regret, and existential anxiety. The burden of choice can be paralyzing, especially when the stakes are high. Free will in a flawed materialistic world can exacerbate inequalities. Those with greater resources may manipulate the freedom of others, perpetuating cycles of exploitation and suffering. On the interdimensionally cosmic scale, free will has allowed the forces beyond our comprehension to take control of the planet we inhabit and do as they wish. The demiurge became a parasite to this planet, and its parasites live off us. This is just the time frame we were born into, living as human beings on a planet where we live, and we die, and we do it again. It is natural to have strong emotions against these parasites that feed off our energy. Some people who subscribe to this theory actually believe that getting angry at these parasites represents true understanding, but frustration is far from understanding. True understanding happens when realizing these parasites do not see themselves as malevolent. They are flawed like all of us. To have sympathy for these corrupt forces seems like a ridiculous perspective until we consider what humans are like. Humans do not see themselves as demons. However, to the animals in factory farming, we are the demons. We are the parasites. As these animals are locked up in cages until the day they die, seeing their brothers and sisters get slaughtered on a daily basis, they view humans as nothing more than the most evil, demonic thing imaginable. Again, humans do not do this because we see ourselves as evil. We do this because we need to eat. We just need energy in the form of physical food. I have never eaten cheeseburgers with the intent to harm my fellow living beings of this earth. I have never eaten cheeseburgers because I hated cows and wanted them to suffer. I have never eaten cheeseburgers because I wanted to keep souls trapped in an endless cycle of pain and misery. I have only ever eaten cheeseburgers on the simple fact that they're just delicious, and my body was hungry. I could have eaten anything. I did not have to eat cheeseburgers, but I used my free will to do that. Humans see themselves as superior to the other animals. Because we have the knowledge and technology to harvest animals, we use our free will to do that. Interdimensional parasites see themselves as superior to third-dimensional humans. Because they have the knowledge and technology to harvest human energy, or loosh, they use their free will to do that. We may likely do the exact same thing if we were them. There is something in the software of humans and parasites that needs energy and wants to expand it. There is something in our software that craves meat and wants it to sustain our nourishment. Concerns like these deeply resonate to people who just completely cut out meat from their diets. This is not always easy to all vegetarians and vegans. Their bodies may still crave meat as a vital protein source. Craving meat can be inconvenient and uncomfortable. And how are people supposed to feel? It's part of the software. Humans eat meat to be strong and survive. In the same way, some people try to completely cut out feelings of lust from their lives. There is something in our software that craves mating with someone we're attracted to, and wants it in order to reproduce and sustain the human population. Cutting out these feelings is not always easy. The body still has involuntary functions. Lustful thoughts can be inconvenient and uncomfortable. And how are people supposed to feel? It's part of the software. Humans breed to reproduce and maintain the human race. But hold on. If humans and parasites continue feeding off the energy of their fellow living beings, is any of this ultimately sustainable? Forget good and evil. Does this become an issue of practicality? The internal software is very strange. Does the software have a virus? Consider the fable of the frog and the scorpion. A scorpion wants to cross a river but cannot swim, so it asks a frog to carry it across. The frog hesitates, afraid that the scorpion might sting it, but the scorpion promises not to, pointing out that it would drown if it killed the frog in the middle of the river. The frog understands this and agrees to transport the scorpion. Midway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog anyway, dooming them both. The dying frog asks the scorpion why it stung despite knowing the consequence, to which the scorpion replies, "I am sorry, but I could not help myself. It's my character." In this fable, the scorpion is not vicious. It does not intend to hurt the frog. There is something in its software that it uses its free will to carry out, even though it killed the frog and ultimately killed itself. We are born from the mother. We grow in her womb. At a greater scale, Earth is also a womb we are growing inside. The Earth groans beneath the weight of its children, a mother betrayed by her own flesh. Like a body turning against itself, she suffers under the tyranny of cells run amok, cells she once nurtured. The cells are turned against each other. At this scale, the Earth has cancer. These cancerous cells, blind with greed, devour her dry. They are us, we are them, a tragic paradox of creation and destruction, thriving on the very womb we destroy. The Earth endures, her resilience vast but not infinite. These cells, these humans, are creatures of desire, grasping at power, thriving on the suffering of their host. They forget the lessons whispered by the roots and sung by the tides, that no parasite can live long when the host begins to die. Still, hope lingers in the quiet corners. Beneath the rot and ruin, seeds lie dormant, waiting for the cancer to subside, for wisdom to reside from the ashes of folly. The Earth is a patient being, and though she suffers, she whispers to us still, calling us to remember, that which nourishes the host nourishes us all. To heal her is to heal ourselves. To honor her is to honor the fragile miracle of our shared existence. We strive to evolve. On a planet like this, the search for meaning must persist. What is the solution? Throughout history, every great prophet has carried a message. Regardless of culture, creed, or circumstance, their words all sang a similar tune. There was a common trend in what they tried to tell us. When analyzing all the texts, we notice there is actually one word that can summarize all of their messages. Liberation. Jesus proclaiming freedom from sin, Muhammad liberating hearts through submission to the divine, the Buddha unshackling minds from suffering. Each, in their own way, invited humanity to step out of its chains. But why this fixation on liberation? We are chained by illusions of separation, self from other, flesh from spirit, etc., etc. Every prophet recognized this essential truth. The bars of our prisons are not wrought of iron, but of perception. To liberate a soul is to grant it the vision to see those bars for what they are. Liberation is a homecoming. It is the realization that the walls we sought to flee were never truly there. It is the unearthing of a freedom that does not depend on external circumstances, but wells up from within, infinite and unyielding. We must ask ourselves, what does it mean to be free? Growing up in the United States, the word freedom has been ingrained in me my entire life. Us citizens have deeply valued the idea of freedom. Even if this empire is ending, its people cannot deny we lived in one of the most interesting experiments in human history. No other national experiment dared to place freedom so prominently at the heart of its identity that liberty could be the foundation upon which a nation might stand. The word freedom, however, has really come into question through time, as citizens ponder if we truly are free. Seeking the meaning of freedom has become a larger question in modern culture. This has transcended questions of national identity to questions of spiritual identity. What does it really mean to be free? Why do humans value freedom with such an intensity as though our very essence depended on it? To be free is to exist without boundaries, without the suffocation of limits imposed by others or by ourselves. And yet, freedom is not chaos. It is the alignment of the self with a deeper truth, a harmony with the infinite. We value freedom because it speaks to something we know instinctively, that we were not made to live in cages. From the first breath we take, we are creatures of movement, of curiosity, of boundless dreams. The soul yearns to expand, to touch the edges of the cosmos, and find there are no edges at all. Freedom calls to this yearning, promising that the barriers before us can be overcome, that the walls within us can be dissolved. To be free is to also face uncertainty, to walk a path with no map, no guarantee of safety, and yet we crave it, because to live without freedom is to not actually live at all. Perhaps freedom is the closest we come to the divine. In every moment of liberation, we glimpse something sacred. We see that freedom is not only our right, but our responsibility, a reminder that life itself is a gift that must be lived fully. Imagine if you were a rock. Your consciousness would be completely stagnant. You would not be able to move anywhere by yourself. Your freedom would be limited. Fortunately, you're not a rock. You can fathom something beyond this. You have the freedom to move around and communicate. Yet, you are still confined to a body, which has its limitations. This body is confined to a planet, which also has its limitations. You can fathom something beyond this. The fact that we have the ability to fathom something beyond this presents a fascinating possibility. Freedom is not just something we desire, it is what we are. This is not what the human body is, this is what we are in our truest forms. This value of freedom we hold so close is a stark, terrifying contrast to the theory that everything we know is a prison. When we die and encounter the white light terminal, and an entity tells us to follow that light, we can simply reject going into that light, reject going into the prison cycle. Of course, this is easier said than done. You can theorize you'll be completely clear-headed and unfazed. You can theorize that you would simply say no thank you to the entity as you peacefully float away from the tunnel and into the ether to reach transcendence. But is it really that simple? Would it really be that easy? We can have as much control over our knowledge of this reality as possible. We can memorize all the concepts and all the symbols, but when something happens to us where we are not in control, we don't know what's really going to happen. After all, everything in the extraordinary apotheosis of the dying process will be something beyond words, something you've never experienced before. You don't know what state of mind you'll be in. You don't know what emotions you'll be feeling. If you've ever witnessed someone having an overwhelming time tripping on psychedelics, you may see they will not be thinking clearly. They have a difficult time trying to cope as they frantically make sense of the reality around them and within them. Though you may try to help by talking with them, you cannot reason with them. You cannot give them a direct solution by saying, "Don't worry, it's not real, just calm down." This is a stupid way to try to get someone out of a bad trip, because what that person is going through is an intense otherworldly experience unlike anything they've ever gone through before. They cannot think in our everyday words and concepts. They are experiencing something beyond words. Anyone who has gone through an intense psychedelic experience with unwanted feelings knows that nobody besides you can pull you out of it. You and only you will have to navigate your personal experiences in order to escape the fear. You need to come to terms with the essence of who you are. Try to pull from your sober experiences and concepts from your life, no matter how distant they may feel at that moment. Past memories feel like past lives in this moment. You need to dig deep, far beyond the essence of your personality and into the depths of your soul. Getting out of a bad trip is easier said than done. Those who are well versed in psychedelics understand there are things they can do in their sober experiences to prepare for possibilities in their psychedelic experiences. This brings up the idea of having a practice. Since everybody is different, people have diverse practice regimens. Having a quote-unquote practice is something deeply meaningful to people, but it's necessary to understand the intention of practice. One of the most common ways people practice for death is through religion. There tends to be two perspectives to religion. One is more immature, while another is more mature. There is the idea that we can do whatever we want in this lifetime, that we can wrong everyone we want as much as possible and commit the worst atrocities imaginable. But as long as we ask for forgiveness 1 second before we die, everything will be okay. This is why so many immature people can be very drawn to religion. It's used as a form of compensation. As long as they know they can simply ask for forgiveness, they have zero need to face their wrongs or consider their own moral perspectives. Everything will already be figured out for them. However, the more mature perspective on religion has less of an emphasis on forgiveness and a far greater emphasis on repentance. Repentance is about actually committing to change. While forgiveness focuses on releasing the past, repentance requires personal responsibility and transformation. It demands introspection and growth rather than simply absolving guilt or pain. It involves a conscious decision to alter one's mentality and behavior, fostering spiritual progress and a more profound understanding of oneself and others. This is why the Gnostics viewed repentance from sin more specifically as enlightenment from illusion. Again, when one dies and is encouraged to follow the white light tunnel, simply rejecting it is easier said than done. It answers the question of what, but it does not answer the question of how. Would there be something we can do in our lifetimes to prepare for this potential moment? This leads us to the question, how do you escape Prison Planet? Well, if you're asking me, I don't think I have the authority to answer that. And you might respond to me by saying, what do you mean? You just spent all this time explaining the Prison Planet theory. The least you can do is offer some perspective on the one obvious question here. Alright, fair. Understand that you have your perspectives and I have mine. So the remainder of this is just my personal viewpoint in respect to this thought exercise. Call it what you will. If you really want to escape, if you really want true liberation, if you really want eternal life, if you really want to reach heaven, there are 2 words you need to always remember, because these 2 words will set you free. The words, know thyself. Now, I get it. This seems like the most generic advice for such a complex idea. Know thyself seems like a cheap insight you'd read in a fortune cookie. You know, one of those sayings that isn't even a fortune. But these 2 words have deep significance in the human experience. For example, one of the most significant parts of the Matrix film is the appearance of the Temete Nasce sign, which is Latin for know thyself. The Oracle, who introduces Neo to this idea, doesn't provide clear answers, but guides him toward introspection, highlighting that his path is not about prophecy, it's about self-discovery. This aligns with existentialist ideas about authenticity and the power of choice, urging Neo to confront whether his fate is predetermined or shaped by his decisions. Awakening to the illusion of the material world leads to spiritual enlightenment, much like Neo's journey out of the Matrix. The Oracle's environment of the kitchen symbolizes nurturing transformation, while the inscription serves as a mirror, challenging Neo to look inward for answers. This self-knowledge becomes the foundation for Neo's transformation, as he moves from doubting himself to embracing his purpose. The phrase invites both Neo and the audience to question the nature of reality and understand how self-awareness is key to transcending limitations. Know thyself is rooted in ancient Greek philosophy, particularly attributed to Socrates and inscribed in the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. This maxim invites individuals to embark on an inward journey of self-discovery. Socrates famously asserted that the unexamined life is not worth living, suggesting that introspection and self-awareness were fundamental to true wisdom. In esoteric traditions, knowing oneself is often linked with a deeper understanding of the divine, as individuals are seen as microcosms of the larger universe. This introspection leads to enlightenment, where one can recognize their connection to higher consciousness and the divine order. Prophets have echoed the importance of self-knowledge as a path to transcendence and union with the divine. By knowing oneself, one can overcome illusions and desires, achieving harmony with the universe and a sense of oneness with all existence. Even if you prescribe to a prepackaged set of beliefs someone tells you to believe, there is still an element of your own thought process that has decided to adopt that package. You already have your perspectives and an understanding of the world. The inevitable responsibility is to continue asking yourself why you understand the world the way you do. Know thyself is not just an invitation to understand one's personality or desires, but a call to explore the soul's deeper truth and its place within the cosmic order, leading to liberation and self-realization. But what actions can you take to know yourself? That is a completely loaded question because everyone's lives are different. Let's ask a way simpler question. Can you sit by yourself in silence for 20 minutes without thinking about anything? While this seems like the easiest task ever, most of us will be surprised to see this is one of those easier said than done situations. It is incredibly difficult to be with ourselves without the thoughts of our environment around us. When we can learn to begin doing this, we can begin learning ourselves. This is not something we read in any self-help book. This is something we find within. What is going on inside of your head? For half my life, I have been journaling the dreams I have at night. We forget most of our dreams, but when you record your dreams, it helps you have a better recall of them. Upon waking up, you can begin to remember multiple dreams you had. From exercising your brain to remember these dreams and reading back on them and reflecting on them, you begin to notice patterns. And sometimes, during a dream, I recognize these patterns within myself, almost like a distant memory that grows louder and louder until in that dream, I consciously recognize I am existing in a dream. I can recall my waking life almost as a past life, and I can exercise true, unlimited free will within that dream. The practice of becoming aware during dreams represents something larger. We have an outside perspective of our dream environment. Through becoming more aware of the scenarios in an environment, we can have a greater understanding of that environment and dig deeper within ourselves to connect to greater knowledge. When you have a lucid dream and your dream character connects to the knowledge of your waking character, you navigate your landscape accordingly. You may encounter other characters in the dream and tell them you're having a dream. They will deny this. They will say you're not having a dream. Naturally, they are not connected to the knowledge you have. It doesn't mean you're any better than them. They're in your dream. They're very much like you. If we become more aware of events happening in our waking life, we can have a greater understanding of our environment and dig deeper within ourselves to connect to greater knowledge. In this sense, if we go through something like the dying experience, where we encounter something beyond our comprehension, perhaps we can connect to the knowledge of the character we were during our lifetime. Like a dream, perhaps we can connect to that waking conscious knowledge that feels like a past life. Perhaps in this moment, like a lucid dream, we can find the peace and confidence required to navigate this confusing, unfamiliar experience. But in these interdimensional battles with emotional turmoil used as weapons, how do we protect ourselves? How do we ground ourselves? When I have gone through stressful periods of life that have caused uncomfortable feelings of uneasiness, a personal mantra I would tell myself to approach anxiety symptoms was this: if you learn to love it, it cannot hurt you. These words always sound ridiculous in the height of stress. Of course, if the words in this mantra are taken too literally, they would present a sadistic approach to life. This does not mean to enjoy one's suffering. Someone can become addicted to their own suffering in the same way they would become addicted to any other feeling. This does not mean we should love the fact that we suffer. Rather, this means learning to love the wisdom and growth that comes from challenging experiences. When curiosity takes over fear, fear will inevitably dissolve, as the love of wisdom is far more powerful. This is the etymology of the word philosophy. It stems from philos, love, and Sophia, wisdom. To parallel back to dreams, whenever I have a recurring nightmare, I have to reflect. I cannot examine just the popular dream interpretations and symbologies of that dream. I have to reflect even deeper on how the nightmare is relevant to my life. This is about asking the question, what have my experiences been showing me? When I get to the root of this question, I can begin to better understand the nature of the nightmare. Having this understanding will generally stop recurring nightmares. If they do not stop, they cease to be nightmares. Therefore, when I learn to love finding the wisdom in life, there are fewer things that can really hurt me. To know yourself is to care for yourself. To look inside is to look far, far beyond the falsehoods and begin seeking the ultimate truth. This ensures we do not fall prey to illusions permeated among us. True divinity, the unseen God of the greater universe, or whatever one wants to call it, lies beyond this realm. It is pure, infinite, and unbound by suffering. To seek it is to transcend the illusions of the material world. Breaking free of samsara and reaching the full spiritual potential of the soul involves raising one's consciousness. To raise one's consciousness, one has no choice but to know thyself. No matter what you think happens after death, other people will think you are crazy. This idea is not off limits. Question everything. Question this idea. If this idea already seems questionable, good. If this idea makes complete sense, start questioning it. Obviously, the prison planet theory brings up many questions. A few of them are as follows. What happens if we don't follow the light? Let's consider this hypothetical scenario. Let's say someone has been held in solitary confinement for 20 years with no contact with anyone. He anticipates his release, but he does not know exactly what he will see on the outside of the prison. Despite not knowing with absolute certainty, he still wants to get out of jail. He knows anything will be better because he was losing his mind trapped in his jail cell every day. If someone chooses not to follow the light tunnel, there are several possible outcomes. By resisting the light, the soul escapes the system of reincarnation, breaking free from being harvested in the cycle of earthly suffering. Some believe the soul, if it avoids the light, will be able to reconnect with its true divine essence or source, a state of ultimate freedom and unity. Others suggest that avoiding the light allows the soul to seek an exit beyond the controlled realms, moving to higher dimensions or realities untouched by the prison system. This theory remains unclear in defining what happens if we don't follow the light. In terms of the afterlife binary, one cannot infer whether avoiding the light will lead to heaven. However, one can infer following that light would lead back to hell. This leads to the question, if reincarnation is happening, why is the world population increasing? The soul is not a human. Souls are not birthed in the world. The concept of past life regression suggests the soul's journey to Earth from a vast array of origins, other planets, star systems, galaxies, and even dimensions beyond human understanding. This convergence of souls is driven by diverse motivations, reflecting the intricate tapestry of existence. Some are compelled by a calling to aid in awakening others, perceiving Earth as a place for transformation or even as a soul farm where cycles of reincarnation hold a certain gravity. Yet, even the most determined may find themselves trapped in the very cycle they seek to break. Others are lured into incarnation by forces benefiting from their presence, raising questions about the nature of choice and coercion in the metaphysical realm. Still, there are those who willingly embrace the full spectrum of earthly existence, seeking both its joys and tribulations as opportunities for growth. Since more and more souls get stuck here, the world population naturally increases. This leads to the question, why aren't other beings rescuing us? Imagine a skilled and resourceful person, with military or special training, who learns that a group of innocent people is being held captive in a remote and dangerous region. This individual has no formal obligation to help, but feels compelled to act. The idea of one person single-handedly rescuing a group from such a dire situation is rare and exceedingly dangerous. Someone considering this would have to weigh their individual capabilities against the very real danger of not only getting kidnapped as well, but also worsening the situation. Humans and the interdimensional parasites exist in the third and fourth dimension, respectively. At scale, these are very low dimensions which vibrate at a low rate. Higher dimensional beings that vibrate at far higher rates may have evolved far past the realm in which we exist. To them, we are a speck of dust, unrecognizable in the ether. Likewise, there may be beings below our dimension that also need to be rescued, but we're just unaware of them. This leads to the question, are we the only prisoners in this planetary system? If we are, it could suggest that our experience is uniquely designed or that our consciousness is somehow different from that of other beings. Perhaps the forces that control our world see us as a special case, one that requires a more sophisticated form of manipulation or imprisonment. This could imply that other civilizations or beings are either beyond this form of control or have evolved in such a way that they are not subject to the same limitations. Our existence might serve a specific purpose in the larger cosmic plan, one that involves harvesting and experimenting on our consciousness in ways that are not yet fully understood. Alternatively, if other beings are similarly trapped in their own systems, it could point to a broader cosmic network of control that spans across multiple worlds or dimensions. In this case, Earth and its inhabitants may not be unique, but part of a larger experiment or cycle of imprisonment that affects other civilizations as well. Perhaps these systems are interconnected, with the suffering and growth of one civilization influencing the others in subtle ways. If this is the case, it could mean that there is a shared cosmic struggle, where entities and beings from other worlds or dimensions are all striving to break free from their own versions of the prison planet and achieve true freedom or enlightenment. This leads to the question, real or not, would living life according to the prison planet theory be a terrible way to live life? The knowledge that nothing matters gets you nowhere. The planet is dying, the sun is exploding, the universe is cooling, nothing's gonna matter. The further back you pull, the more that truth will endure. But when you zoom in on Earth, when you zoom into a family, when you zoom into a human brain and a childhood and an experience, you see all these things that matter. We have this fleeting chance to participate in this illusion called I love my girlfriend, I love my dog. How is that not better? Dan Harmon. Living life according to the prison planet theory could feel like a heavy, negative perspective, fixated on persecution. The idea of being trapped in a controlled reality might lead to feelings of hopelessness and existential despair. If everything we experience is part of a larger predetermined system designed to keep us imprisoned, it may diminish the sense of personal agency or purpose. People might struggle to find meaning in their daily lives, feeling like their efforts to grow, learn, or connect with others are ultimately futile in the grand scheme of things. It might seem that no matter what we do, we're bound to repeat the same cycle or be controlled by external forces. This seemingly treats the opportunity of life as a burden rather than a gift. Believe it or not, this theory may not be inherently nihilistic because it leaves no choice but to become solutions-oriented. Even within such a belief system, some might find a way to make peace with the idea of being part of a larger cosmic puzzle. Some people ultimately enjoy asking questions and figuring things out. They could focus on personal growth, kindness, and awakening as ways to transcend the limitations of the prison, even if those efforts might seem small or insignificant in the grander context. Viewing life through the lens of the prison planet theory could encourage individuals to question the status quo, to rebel against control, or to strive for freedom in any way they can, even if the outcome is uncertain. Ultimately, this theory could lead to a deeper understanding of self-awareness, inner strength, and resilience, allowing some to turn a seemingly negative worldview into one of empowerment. Nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under, it will lift you up. This is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done, by hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it's a feather bed. Terence McKenna. Attachment, whether to people, beliefs, or fears, keeps us trapped. The idea of the prison planet itself can become an attachment, reinforcing the illusion that we are permanently imprisoned. The irony is that by becoming obsessed with escaping the prison, we may just lock ourselves into another form of mental captivity. True liberation comes from understanding that these concepts are potentially reflections of our inner state. By letting go of attachment and fear of the unknown, we recognize that nothing external has power over us unless we grant it. The prison planet theory invites deep reflection on the nature of existence, struggle, and freedom. Whether viewed as a literal belief or a symbolic representation, it resonates with an enduring truth. Life is filled with obstacles, and our essence is shaped by how we confront them. To exist is to face challenges. At every level, physical, mental, emotional, we find ourselves in a constant state of overcoming. From the simplest struggles of survival to the profound quest for meaning, this process defines our humanity. Life offers us the raw materials that we must mold into meaning. Overcoming becomes a chance to exercise agency, to create purpose, and to transcend the circumstances we find ourselves in. Seen in this way, even the most restrictive metaphor of life as a prison can transform us. A prison confines, but it also forces introspection, compelling us to confront what truly matters. Overcoming is not just survival. It is alchemy. It is turning suffering into strength, ignorance into wisdom, and despair into hope. In the face of life's constraints, we prove that our spirit cannot be imprisoned unless we allow it to be. The act of overcoming, then, may be what frees us. There is a lot to overcome in this world, but these are just matters of the physical universe. Aspects of the soul must be overcome as well. When we die and face the light, we do have a choice as to whether to follow that light. Grappling with that choice is something to overcome. Dying is a deeply personal experience, and when one dies and remembers this theory, there is one final question that must also be overcome. The question, was this actually a prison to you? You lived a good life. It wasn't perfect, but what life is perfect? That's what made it genuine. You were born into this world with the spark of something great, a force that was undeniable, even in the earliest moments. Your first breaths, your first cries, they were all signals that you were here to make your mark. You learned to walk, to speak, to hold on to the things you loved, and you did it with a quiet determination. Your childhood was filled with its own challenges. Times when you were unsure, moments when you felt small in the face of the world, but you kept going. You never let those obstacles stop you. Each fall was followed by a rise. Each doubt was silenced by your courage. Your teenage years were a time of discovery, self-doubt, and rebellion, but they were also when you began to understand who you truly were. You navigated the turbulence of adolescence, balancing friendships, school, and the pressure of expectations. There were moments of frustration, times when you felt like you didn't fit in, but it was also during this time that you started forming your own beliefs and aspirations. Your teenage years shaped the foundation of the person you would become, filled with mistakes that taught you lessons, joys that built your confidence, and challenges that ignited the fire within you. Though it was a period of uncertainty, it was also one of growth, as you slowly found your voice and began to see the world through your own lens. In your young adult years, you stepped into the world with anticipation, knowing that the road ahead was full of possibilities, but also steeped in unknowns. You ventured into the realm of independence, carving out a space for yourself in a world that seemed vast and full of opportunity. You struggled with finding your place and making the right decisions, but you were relentless in your pursuit of purpose. These years were filled with self-discovery as you explored relationships, career paths, and passions, always making mistakes, but always learning from them. You worked hard to establish yourself, building the skills and experiences that would shape your future. Finding love was a journey that took patience, but when it finally came, it was everything you dreamed of and more. You met someone who saw you for who you truly were, someone who matched your heart with a tenderness and strength that brought out the best in you. The bond you shared grew stronger with each passing year, filled with laughter, understanding, and the kind of love that only deepens over time. Together, you built a life of shared moments, quiet comforts, and grand dreams. You made the decision to marry, to commit to each other fully, and as you stood there, exchanging vows, you knew in your heart this was the beginning of the greatest adventure of all. Your marriage wasn't perfect, but what marriage is, that's what made it genuine. You faced challenges with your spouse, supported each other through every storm, and in doing so, created a partnership that was unbreakable. Having children was a chapter in your life that brought both joy and complexity. You gave all of yourself to them, your time, your energy, your love. Each day was filled with moments of wonder as you watched them grow, learn, and become their own unique individuals. You taught them right from wrong, showed them the value of kindness and perseverance, and encouraged them on their paths. There were sleepless nights, difficult decisions, and challenges that tested your limits, but every moment, every sacrifice was worth it. You watched with pride as your children became strong, compassionate, and capable adults. You saw a lot of yourself in them, but you also saw their own unique individualities emerge. And though the years went by quickly, you held on to the memories, cherishing the laughter and the moments of closeness that defined those years of raising them. As you entered your maturity, you worked tirelessly to hone your professional craft, gaining the wisdom and experience that only comes with time and dedication. You found satisfaction not just in what you achieved, but in the relationships you built along the way. Your career and passions became a testament to your perseverance, hard work, and commitment to excellence. You had mastered your craft, and your professional life became a reflection of your dedication to making a difference. You felt a sense of pride in how far you had come, knowing that each step in your career was part of the larger story of your life, and your children propelled you through this. Every year of raising them pushed you to work harder and harder to feed and shelter them, and to set as stable of a future as you possibly could for them. And then one day, your children had children of their own. You became a grandparent. Watching your children take on this new role was nothing short of miraculous. You saw pieces of yourself in them, but also new traits and qualities that were uniquely their own. As they cared for their children, you were reminded of the full circle of life, how love only grows and multiplies over time. You saw your grandchildren's eyes light up with wonder, and you couldn't help but smile, knowing that the love you had built, the lessons you had passed down, would continue on for generations. You had lived through it all, and in those moments, you realized how truly blessed you had been. The love you had created, the family you had nurtured, had become a legacy that would live on. As the years passed, you entered your old age, carrying with you the wisdom of a lifetime well lived. You had faced the toughest of battles, and yet here you are, standing tall, proud of all you had overcome. Every wrinkle, every gray hair tells the story of a life not just lived, but fought for. Through every twist and turn, through the highs and the lows, you made it. You succeeded, not because life handed you everything, but because you refused to give up on yourself, no matter how hard things got. It wasn't perfect, but what is perfect? That's what made life genuine. As you stand at the threshold of the white light, the world as you knew it begins to fade into the distance. In this moment, you are given a glimpse of something extraordinary, an opportunity to be human again, to experience life once more with all its ups and downs, its joys and heartaches. The chance to taste even a fraction of the vastness of existence is a gift, one that fills you with awe and wonder. Every moment, every breath, every sensation becomes a miraculous adventure, a fleeting but precious chance to feel the sun on your skin, to taste the sweetness of love, to revel in the beauty of simple things. The family and friends and loved ones you met in your lifetime, maybe it wasn't the first time you all had experienced this journey together, and maybe it won't be the last. As you look back on all you've lived through, you realize that even in your final moments, the possibility of experiencing the world again, however briefly, is a profound and wondrous blessing. In this light, life is infinite, and you stand ready to embrace it once more, as though you were a child discovering it all over again. It would be the experience of a lifetime to be born on this planet. But what is this planet?